From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
And we're back. And Ben, I think you made some excellent points in that last story. It's obviously something that is very, very relevant to all of our lives and indicative of kind of like where we're going as a culture. Unfortunately, another place that we're going as a culture is in the direction of being kind of dumb. That I think that follows suit to that story, but also in terms of just guarding our own personal data. It seems like a day doesn't go by where we don't hear about some giant hack of some corporation, you know, with all of this personal information being compromised or financial information or whatever. You'd think after all of that, all of those news stories, all of these conversations about Russian hacking and, you know, us being target of international infiltration, you know, to steal our identities or whatever, that people would be a little more clever with their passwords, you know, use like two-factor authentication, use one of those password wallets, etc. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And full disclosure, the study that I'm about to reference is in fact from or was financed by a password wallet company, a company called NordPass. Which is very much, you know, it's a service where you can have them create strong passwords, have them generate new passwords on the regular, where you use like a master password to keep your password wallet, everything kind of safe. But they did, in fact, they have for quite a few years running, been coming out with this list of the most common passwords. And the list for 2021 quite closely resembles the list for 2020, with the number one most popular password in all countries, being 123456. In their results, the data, they actually have a column of the ranking, the password, how long it took to crack it, and then how many in their study or their analysis, how many there were. Of 123456, it took them less than a second to crack it, and there are 103,170,552 people that think 123456 is a good one. Second only to 123456789, which also took less than a second to crack. The number goes down quite a bit to 46 million and some change. Then you have 12345, followed by QWERTY, password 123456781, 11111, 123 12345678990. There you go. Still, all of these take less than a second to crack. And then they start getting a little more interesting as you go down the list. You know, things like swears are very popular. First names with no numbers are very popular. Things like 123456Q, you know. I'm surprised I'm not seeing any like asterisks in any of this or any like ASCII, you know, like, I mean, I try to always have, you know, all of the hallmarks of a strong password in my password. It's like a capital letter, some sort of non-numeric symbol, a number, you know, and a mix of letters and numbers. Liverpool is number 121. I love you 1 is number 122. You got things like Michelle. Funny enough, first names take longer to crack, for obvious reasons, because I guess you just go through obvious first names. So Michelle took 3 hours to crack. There's 923,000 Michelles. Andrew, but weirdly, Andrew only took 2 minutes to crack. I'm a little confused about that metric.
Because if it's a brute force hack, it starts on A.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Ben. Nailed it.
But there's something really interesting before you go. I got to say, I love this image, Noel, of somebody doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And that's number one on the list. It's easily cracked. But I love the idea that 1 through 9 is somehow more difficult. Like someone's cracking the code. They get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're like, that doesn't work. And they're like, that's it. I don't know. There's no bigger number. What's the next bigger number? Like that old Mr. Show sketch.
Exactly.
Like, they can't think of it. They're like, surely there's a
This
plot
one's
twist.
one louder. This one's one bigger.
Can I just say how much I love the password that is QWERTY, UIOP? because theoretically, if you were going to enter that password, let's say to open your computer, you would just run your line, if you have a QWERTY keyboard, across one section of your keyboard, and it would open your machine. It's pretty amazing.
Totally. No, there's some wacky ones in here. So if you go to Australia, this is a neat study because you can go through and look at them by country. And so, of course, depending on the different countries, you get different like kind of pop cultural touchstones and things like that. One thing that I found really interesting is in Australia, number 26 is MySpace and the numeral 1. Which took 3 hours to crack. And there are 19,247 MySpace ones. Didn't think MySpace was still in play, but maybe it's a different deal in Australia. But it's a thing. People are being not particularly good stewards of their data and of their personal information, it would seem. This whole study was funded by NordPass, but it was compiled in partnership with independent researchers that specialize in cybersecurity research. Vice has a great article about it. They looked at 4 terabytes of data across 50 different countries. And this is the 3rd year that they've done the research. And again, you can also see it broken down into individual countries. Patricia Cerniaskate, excuse me for butchering that, it's a tricky one, who's a spokesperson for NordPass, had this to say to Vice: "We honestly didn't expect to see so many cultural references in the country lists." So depending on the country, you would have, references to the most popular sports teams. So in the U.S., you got Steelers, quite popular. In the U.K., you got Liverpool. In Chile, you've got Colo Colo, and in Brazil, Nacional, Sparta in the Czech Republic, Marseille in France, and Schalke 04 in Germany. And then also in Greece, you have Olympiakos. Also lots of beverage names like Guinness in Ireland, and then some religious passwords as well. In Nigeria, Christ was very popular, and in Saudi Arabia, Bismillah topped the list. So yeah, it's pretty wild. Let's see. The spokesperson for NordPass also had this to say: "For the first time ever, Eminem has entered the list." Speculation in this Vice article: was this some sort of millennial revenge for Gen Z TikTokers trying to cancel Eminem, which is an icon that they grew up with? They're trying to keep him alive in a word that no one will ever see, in spirit, I suppose. Naruto and Superman and Pokemon were also popular choices. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And of course, if you go to the list and see, God forbid, one of your passwords is on there, I would change that bad boy right away and maybe consider subscribing to NordPass, who are not sponsoring this episode, so far as we know. But what do you guys think? I mean, as being part of a big company like we are literally forced to change our password regularly. And it can't be the same as the last 5 we've had. So inevitably, what a lot of people probably end up doing is just adding a numeral at the end, or upping the numeral by 1 digit at the end, because it gets a little ridiculous. It starts to become very unwieldy to remember all these passwords, especially if you're using one for work, you're using one for your personal emails. Maybe you have bank accounts and crypto accounts and wallets and things like that. You start getting into password overload. So I understand the malaise around it a little bit, but not to the degree of some of these in the top 25 that I'm seeing. I mean, top number 25 overall is 987654321.
Yeah.
And then before that is 666666.
So to go back to the question you had asked, I can't speak for anyone but myself here. One of the easiest ways to guard against this is first, like Matt said, to have a more secure password, but secondly, to practice things like 2-factor authentication, which can feel like a pain in the keister, because you have to have your phone with you or some, other channel of communication. And also that's something that not everybody has, but it's an important and a relatively painless way to circumvent a lot of these problems. And that's why you'll only see 2-factor authentication exploding more in the future. You'll also see biometric identification. Like, hey, it doesn't matter how complex this string of text is. We need your fingerprint. Let me get a look at that eyeball, that kind of stuff, which personally I'm not the biggest fan of. I understand when it needs to be used in things like military applications or very sensitive intellectual property kind of stuff. But for this, like if you're going on Facebook or what have you, then just have Just have it set up to send you a text so you can prove that you are who you are, and that should stop a lot of hacking.
Ben, I imagine you're not a iPhone user who uses the Face ID.
I don't care for it.
And I understand why, because maybe in your not just over speculate, but maybe in your thinking, this is not military grade. Like it's a new feature. It seems like maybe it hasn't quite, met the same rigor as what they've been using, in like spy movies for years. I mean, Apple might argue otherwise, but is that your thinking, or does it just kind of make you uncomfortable?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely fair, I do not think that anyone cares what my face in particular looks like when I open an iPhone. However, I also don't like the idea of all the dopey faces that I might be making when I'm reading stuff. You know what I mean? Think about when you read out of the phone. The angle is terrible. It's right up your nose. Everybody, like if the NSA is looking, they know all your boogers. And this is, so it's for much more vain, much more petty reasons on my part, though I do acknowledge there is danger that comes along with pervasive facial recognition, just as there is convenience.
Well, I don't want to get beat up, shot, or stabbed and have my assailant pick up my phone and just go, and then they're in my phone. I mean,
that's a good point too,
up.
Matt. That's a really good point.
That's like the whole, for me, that's the whole point of facial recognition. Well, somebody could get hurt and you can still open their phone.
But you see that in spy movies too, man, where someone gets like their throat slit and then, or they literally rip their eyeball out and stick it up to the eyeball scanner, or they drag the body up and hold the face up. I mean, that's a really good point.
In this case, it's literally you're on the ground, somebody holds your phone by your face, and it's open, and they've got everything. I don't know, whatever. Look,
I didn't even think about that. You're really causing me to rethink my use of biometric recognition for my device.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to talk about demographics, you guys, age demographics across the world. And when I'm thinking about these passwords, I'm looking at Statista. I think that's how you say it. I don't know, maybe it's wrong, but just that in North America, in I think Europe, and a couple other places, you look at the over 65 population and the under 15 population. And in North America, that would be 17% on the older side, about 18% on the younger side. And I'm wondering if those demographics maybe line up with some of these easier passwords to remember, or repeated passwords, or even when you get Pokemon and some of the other like really popular things like Spider-Man showing up in passwords.
Yeah, for dudes, you've got a lot of people using Metallica and Slipknot. And apparently the most popular band name over the past 3 years, especially in Australia and Canada and Ireland, is Blink-182. I guess because in their minds, you got a word and you got some numbers, so you're already halfway there. Yeah. Add an @ symbol to the front of that, and you're technically have a strong password.
Maybe switch it up, do like Blink-41 and Sum 182,
Love it.
Yeah, hit them with the plot twist, Shyamalan it. I mean, this is only going to be more important, but also we have to remember, the biometric information and the facial recognition and all that jazz, all the hits. That's going to be inevitably more common for the average consumer over time, just because it feels more seamless. It feels like it's more secure. It's going to increasingly feel maybe a mark of antiquity to enter it. Like we're quickly entering into a part of technological evolution where it'll seem old timey to use your hands and computer things. Like I'm still fighting. I'll say this: I'm still fighting voice recognition technology being increasingly forced upon me and normalized in a very non-consensual way. Like you call a company, right? It could be a financial services company, it could be a utility company, and you can still in many cases access the touch tone menu, but that menu is becoming increasingly more difficult to find. Just the way that Sesame Credits started off as an opt-in thing and then became a mandate. Vocal recognition is becoming a mandated technology, and it's starting in the private industry, right? And so like I would love to hear from people who have complained to one of these businesses or asked for details about what they're doing with the audio data they're gathering from your voice. Are you getting a cut of it? The answer is certainly not if they are selling it. And there's nothing to stop them from selling it in many, many cases.
Yeah, even if we were getting a cut, like we did, I forget what it was. It was maybe a year ago. There was a story. Yeah, big data on you, but there was they boiled it down to a monetary figure, and it ended up being like fractions of a penny per use of your data. So it was like not even valuable to you, or at least at market rate. I'm probably misremembering that a little bit, but it is wildly. All of it, the level of head in the sandness, of which I exhibit plenty. Even Matt, you really did just kind of like pull my head out of the sand when it comes to the biometric face stuff. But like, you know, I know some people who are much more cautious about their cameras on their phones and on their computers, and I just don't give a shit. But I probably should. But at the very least, I do have strong passwords. I have a handful of them, and I don't think any of them have been compromised yet. And I, you know, don't change them frequently. But I used to have one of those passport wallets back in the day, but even that got unwieldy, or I upgraded, and I don't remember exactly what happened, and I lost the software, and I never looked back. But yeah, write in, let us know. Do you use dumb passwords? Is this a wake-up call for you, or do you just not really care? Let us know. Write to us at conspiracy@iheartradio.com. And in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with one more piece of strange news.
Well, this is a very strange one.